what are we talking about on this week's episode of How to English TEFL Pod?
Well, Gav, we discuss what to do if you run out of time.
And I ask, just what is business casual?
We compare for, since and from.
We talk about stealing students.
And our quiz of the week is about groups of animals.
And don't forget, followers, if you're enjoying the show, let your students, fellow teachers, or school know just how much you like listening to How to English TEFL podcast.
We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome everybody, this is How to English, Teach and Learn with Gav and Em.
It's a podcast about teaching and learning English as a foreign language.
All opinions stated are personal and references will be given when necessary.
Nice to see you again, Gav.
It is great to catch up with you after a busy week of teaching and learning. I hope you've made some notes from your previous week and you're ready to share them with us, the followers, and myself.
I have got a post-it with a few things jotted down.
That sounds great. That sounds very exciting. A jotted list of
things
that you did with your students.
And didn't do.
And things you didn't do. And things you should have done.
For example, I'll just jump straight in. Things I didn't do, Gav. I didn't have time to chat at the end of a listening task. And I'm really kicking myself.
What exactly do you mean by you didn't have time to chat after a listening task? Why do you need to chat after a listening task?
So students can use the language, so they can discuss what was talked about in the listening. So I did everything really brilliantly, checked all the boxes for the lead-in, pre-taught the vocab, did the first gist listening, did the second detailed listening. It was going great. And then I ran out of time to actually talk about it. And it was a really interesting topic. It was all about a screw loose at 17,000 feet.
A screw loose, not referring to somebody's mental capacity.
No, that is not very nice to say. No, this is an actual screw loose at 17,000 feet. So what does that bring to mind?
Is it a superhero flying with a fistful of screws and one of them becomes detached and there is a chance that somebody below will be screwed? No,
not that. No, not that at all. It was about a plane that had been manufactured with a fault. And this is from a podcast called Cautionary Tales, which is one of my favourite podcasts. And I thought I'd try it with my students. And they really enjoyed it because they all work in mechatronics. So it's actually quite relevant for them. We had this long listening task where I created a worksheet where they had to work out what went wrong. And the point was all these things went wrong. It wasn't just one thing. It was a series of unfortunate events.
Is this the cheese theory?
Yes, it is the cheese theory. How did you know about the cheese theory?
I think I've heard this somewhere before.
The Swiss cheese theory.
Is this where all the holes line up and it's seemingly impossible, but it can result in disaster?
Yeah, one thing on its own would not be too bad. One of those cheese holes would not be too bad. If you imagine a sandwich and you're layering your cheese slices and all the holes line up,
your mayonnaise is going to go straight through.
Yeah, your bread will be soggy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we did all of that. We understood the listening perfectly. I was well impressed with my students. They were following it. They were giving me all the right answers. And then we ran out of time to actually talk about how it applies to them, how it might affect their work, what kind of problems they could have. Most importantly, how would they avoid those problems?
If they've got their own anecdotes to tell.
Yeah, all of that. Just ran out of time. And obviously they don't know, but I was really gutted because I wanted to get really into the nuts and bolts of that kind of conversation, not the screws.
That's such a pity, but I wonder, Em, if you really do need to have a talking part to the lesson after a listening task, because essentially all you're asking the students to do is to listen, to comprehend and possibly answer a few questions.
I agree, and I told myself that and made myself feel better because as a lesson it was solid. It was a great listening and they did answer all the questions correctly. So that as a comprehension lesson it was fab, but I just felt like it was a missed opportunity. But then maybe, next week we come back to the topic and we say, oh yeah, remember last week's listening task? And what about your job? How do you avoid these problems? Because basically it was somebody who wasn't supposed to do the job, picked up the wrong screw out of the wrong box that wasn't marked, put it into the plane with the wrong tool because it was dark and they couldn't see very well. So all these things have to be taken into account, I think, when you're running a big company like that.
That is very, very true, and that is fascinating. However, Em, I don't know about you, but saying to the students, that's great, we're going to continue this conversation next week. When next week arrives and you start the lesson again, they don't tend to be very interested in last week's topic.
I never do it, to be honest. Last week's done. Last week's gone. I'm moving on. Come with me to the next fun place.
So you're not going to revise it after all?
I'm saying that for the followers, Gav. There's always an option if you want to. That's probably what you should do.
Yeah, but just don't be surprised if the students don't want to go with you.
Mine don't. Not normally. So what about your week, Gav?
It has been a fabulous week with lots of very fun teaching and learning happening, which led me to make a small list of my own of things I'd like to discuss with you and possibly what would Em do.
What would Em do? Okay, intriguing.
Let me get your perspective on one of these, let's call it topics.
Okay.
Business casual.
Business casual immediately makes me think pyjamas and a shirt and tie.
Em, I hope you are not walking into that office with a pair of pyjamas and a tie?
No, I'm joking. This is working from home business casual. I expect you mean something that's smart but not too stuffy.
I think you understood immediately what I was referring to, which was what to wear to work when you're a teacher. I think you've already implied that online teachers may need to only be half and half.
Yeah, exactly.
Half professional, half casual.
But I do remember working for companies that required you to be quite, like you say, business casual, quite formal.
I've worked for a company where I had to wear a suit and tie.
Well, that's the extreme end, I would say. But most companies, I think, would have a rule about flip-flops, maybe, torn jeans, especially if you're going into offices. Some don't like the kind of T-shirts with lots of logos or
some slogans saying, I hate you, go F yourself.
Aggressive, but not just aggressive, but just, maybe it doesn't look so professional. I've had a bit of a mixed experience with that. Some companies don't mind.
And would you be happy sharing your experiences with us right now?
I am right now sharing my experiences. Maybe you're not aware of it, but I am sharing them.
Were these positive experiences?
Yeah, generally. I didn't tend to break the rules.
Is there a gender difference here that maybe they were perhaps more lenient with you than some of the male teachers?
Not that I was aware of.
Describe to us what was business casual or the uniform you were expected to wear while teaching.
I usually would wear a pair of trousers or a skirt with a quite nice top, just to kind of...
Covering the shoulders?
Sometimes not. What would you roll up wearing on a normal day?
I think I started by wearing collared shirts that buttoned up at the front, usually white. Possibly a jacket over that, pair of trousers, some smart shoes, which had been polished only hours before.
That does sound like a lot of ironing.
But I think I slowly slipped into maybe some dark jeans and a polo top.
And that's because you got more relaxed with the students and everyone just gradually got less formal, or because you realised you were overdressed to begin with?
I would go with number two, because people used to come up to me in the offices and say, do you work here? And I'd say, no, I'm the English teacher.
And they expected you to be there with sandals and a T-shirt maybe.
Something like that.
And that's good for you, I'd say.
Possibly. I'm not sure, because many of the students looked at me in a kind of, you're a bit overdressed for this position.
You got to get the right balance.
All right, I just wanted to get a little overview of some business casual
Yeah, I like it. It's harder in the summer, I think, because it is hot, and to get that right and not be hot and sweaty in a suit jacket or a polyester shirt, I always go for non-synthetic fibres. It's a good tip, I think.
But then you're stepping into an air-conditioned office, quite probably.
True, yeah. You might end up freezing in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. All these things you got to think about. Gav, can I ask you, what would Gav do?
You can. I shall consult the Gavster.
You're going to talk to yourself. So, 15 minutes before the end of a lesson, the student suddenly says, oh, and by the way, what is the difference between for, since and from?
A whole 15 minutes. Usually I get 60 seconds to answer questions like that.
Oh, really? Okay, so for you, this is eons. What would you do? How would you break it down?
For, since and from?
Yes.
Is it a 1-to-1?
No, 2-to-1. I'm outnumbered.
I would ask the students if they could tell me.
Really? Because they've asked you, because they clearly haven't got a clear idea.
2 students have asked exactly the same question.
Oh, okay. You'd ask the group, let's say. You'd throw it back to the other one who
I'd ask the remaining
asking.
students. But to be honest, I'd ask the student who asked the question, well, what do you think are example sentences?
Nice.
Or what do you think is a way of using this grammar that you might be able to share with us?
That's nice.
And if they tell me, they might give an example. I have worked here for 20 years. I will write it on the board or in the chat.
So if the student says, yes, I can give you an example. I have worked here since 4 years, which is what they all say. How are you going to fix it?
At the top of the board, write the topic of for, since, from. Underneath, put sentence number 1 from my student. And instead of the incorrect word, I would put a line. And then I would elicit a second sentence, perhaps with a mistake again. And then I will put another line for the missing word. And then from, I guess we're talking about between 2 periods of time. So I was the managing director from 2015 to 2018.
Yeah.
I might just write that one myself.
Okay. You're saying gap fill, basically. Gap fill it.
They've already got from, and then we know for and since are missing. And I say to the students, right, look at those sentences again, which is which. Hopefully they get it right because they've already got it wrong once.
Yeah.
Then I say to them, right, now can you explain to me why is this since, why is this for? And there's a chance they'll actually remember from their schooling days the rules.
That's nice.
And what I do with the rest of the 14 minutes that I have, we would just probably chat.
Oh, wow. So confident. Yeah, I think it's really important to stress the tense differences with these. I started by saying, well, if you're talking about experience and up to now, time up to now, then you would use for or since. So if you're working in a job and you want to tell someone how long you've worked there, you would say, I've worked here. And if you were going to say the time it started, would you use for or would you use since, Gav?
So I'm specifically referring to a period of time which is not finished.
Yeah.
And we want to say that it started at a specific time in the past.
Yeah, would you use for or since?
This would be since.
Okay, so I've worked here since 2019. And if you want to talk about duration, then you use for. Yeah, I've worked here for 5 years. But what's confusing to students is you can use for with the past. So then I wrote a sentence that said, and in my previous job that's finished, I worked there for 5 years. And that's not happening anymore. Yeah. So then we got into past simple. And then you move into from, because I worked there from 2015 to 2020. So that one you can use with past simple. So then I kind of drew a line between the sentences to show these ones are present perfect. These ones are continuing to happen and experience until now. And the ones under this are finished time. So the for kind of crosses over, overlaps into both, but from definitely past simple.
I can see why that would confuse students.
Yeah, I think that's what I realised when I was explaining it. You get a bit stuck sometimes when you're trying to explain in a very concise, short way, in a nutshell, what the differences are.
And was 15 minutes enough for you to convince the students?
It was, and then I've looked into my present perfect folder and I dug out a worksheet about how long people have worked in companies, and we did a little A/B role play thing, and it was all pretty good, yeah.
Sounds good to me. I think I remember an exercise that you described, which was to get the students to choose their favourite restaurant online and then find the menu, and then they have to describe the menu to you and tell you what they like about the dish and the ingredients and stuff like that. Am I correct?
Yes, they translated it from their own language into English. In a kind of, imagine I'm with you in a restaurant and you need to explain it all to me because I don't have a mobile phone.
Well, I was inspired by that lesson, Em, and I gave it a twist.
Which was?
Cities.
Cities.
Choose a favourite city.
Yeah.
Show us it online using your favourite maps website and tell us the places that you enjoy visiting, what we can see,
nice.
monuments, sites, rivers, bridges, stuff like that.
Lovely.
It was quite cool.
And you can switch between street view and aerial view maybe if you want to get a bit closer in and show people, or maybe go to Google Images, have a look at it close up.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely.
And then you could do your favourite thing, which is to go to the restaurant that the student visited while they were in that city, and then they can talk us through their favourite meal.
Yeah, you could have a whole day out in that sense, a virtual day out in your town. Definitely nice to keep it local. And they've usually got a lot to talk about.
They could even suggest a few souvenirs before we leave.
Oh, I love that question. Yeah. Just the other day, Gav, I asked my students, what's your town famous for? If I was there, what would you recommend that I buy? And they said, yeah, ceramics. It's really famous for this ceramics. But it turned out it was actually used in toilets. So I was kind of surprised.
That is a very fine piece of porcelain.
Yeah. Wouldn't buy it as a souvenir, but maybe like a little magnet or something could be good.
A magnetic toilet?
A little one, like a fridge magnet.
Oh.
The shape of a toilet. I don't know. It just came to mind. But it's a nice question, and a lot of people always want to share that kind of information, and I like hearing about it.
I like that too. I'd love to know what souvenirs are available across the world.
New definition to digital nomad. Digital souvenir buying. Which is nice. I'm really enjoying at the moment seeing my classes really grow.
Are they flourishing?
Yeah, in confidence. And I think it's just through general enjoyment of the topics and looking very interested in what my students are saying. They're coming and they are expecting to have a nice time. And I think that that's really helping their confidence. And I've had some feedback to say that they feel good now about talking and they didn't before, which kind of leads me to my next point, because at the beginning of a course, I get my students to talk as much as possible in any way, not just, how are you or what's your job or what have you been doing, but in every sense. How do you make a cup of tea, before the lesson? What's your favourite kind of pen? When you set up a task, I usually explain to the students what they have to do, and then I get one of them to rephrase it so the others hear it again.
This sounds absolutely riveting.
Well, it's just about getting them talking, or just, how to navigate a page on the browser.
Is it all stuff that they already know?
Is, yeah. If they want to show me a photo and they're sharing their screen, I just take that opportunity to say, well, what are you doing exactly? How are you sharing that screen? Or even like, how did you join the group today online? What buttons did you press on your keyboard or mouse?
It could still challenge them quite a bit, Em, because I do this too. And the students realise that these everyday terms are actually words they don't know in English.
It's great vocab. And as I said about setting up tasks, doing that classic CELTA CCQ, what are you going to do now? How many questions are you going to answer? What are you listening for? Are you going to write down this? Are you going to do that? And then get them to explain it. I do all that at the beginning.
Is a mouse an animal?
That's right.
That's a good CCQ.
That is a very good CCQ. But as it goes on and they do gain their confidence, which I'm seeing definitely.
Do they get a bit cheeky?
No, I'm just thinking, do I need to do all of that other stuff as much as I did before?
Is it because they roll their eyes when you say, What are the ingredients in that dish?
Yeah, it kind of gets, I think, for them a bit patronising. Maybe they see through my tricks. Maybe they also just think, we know what we've got to do. You know we know. Why have we got to tell you that we're listening for 7 answers? We know that. And I don't want attitude. I don't want them to think that I don't think they're capable.
I think it's still part of the lesson. I think you expect them to be able to explain things to you. It's part of it's core for the pass.
Par for the course.
It's par for the course.
But I feel like as it grows and gets more natural and my students become genuinely more confident,
And they get used to you.
then it really should start to represent real life. And I think that's where I pull back a little bit more.
I draw the line here. This is not real life. This is us teaching.
But don't you want to emulate a real meeting situation? You want to feel they can go out of the class into a meeting where they've just got to do some small talk and then start the presentation, and they haven't got to say, how the projector works. It's not like that in the real world.
But you never know. Somebody might say, how does this projector work? And your student's going to jump up and say, stand back.
Yeah.
I can tell you.
But all they need to do is say, press that button there. They don't need to say, well, the light refracts onto a glass. And then, I'm talking about that kind of level that I know we both like to get into with our lessons, because it's all, language. But I find I'm pulling back a little bit more these days. I'm just trying to keep it real.
If the students seem fed up with you asking these rather in-depth questions, then yeah, maybe abandon that fairly quickly. But I still think they get a lot of skills from being able to describe things, talk about processes. There's some pretty complex language in there.
Yeah. I like that too. I definitely don't want to give up on that. I feel like maybe it's just more who's talking in the recording? How many people are you going to hear? What are they going to be talking about? That kind of stuff. Preparing them for a task.
But there is a very good reason for that, Em, that we learnt when we did our training.
Yes, but that's
And
not...
what was the reason? Can you please explain?
Well, I guess you're talking about to familiarise them with the topic so they are prepared for what they're going to hear, which you can do to a certain extent in real life. You can think about, well, what am I expecting to listen for, and what kind of information are these people going to be talking about?
But there's more than that, Em. In a group of, say, 10 students, you say to all of them, okay, do you understand? Are you ready to do this exercise? And you hear a mumbled, mm-hmm. There may be one student who doesn't know what they need to do.
Yeah.
And we are here for all 10 of our students, not just the 9 that say they're ready.
Yeah.
But we want to know that all of the students are ready to do the exercise, they understand what they need to do, and that they're going to get some reward from doing this.
So you're not flying with the fastest, is what you're saying.
Precisely.
You're dawdling with the slowest.
We're just making sure everybody is on the same page.
Yes, which is good, definitely. I mean, this week I've had a conversation just today where all 3 students I thought were paying attention and listening to the last part of the lesson, which was all about a certain topic, and then one of them asked a question which proved they had no idea what we were talking about. So yeah, you can't assume.
Definitely not. I also, on this topic, mentioned to a student today that I do sometimes kind of pretend I don't know what things are, just so that it forces the student to have to explain it to me, because they might find somebody who doesn't know something that we assume everybody knows.
Yeah, I do think there is a point of that is acceptable and not... I mean, what is a banana?
Yeah.
I just don't want to do that.
I gave the example of what is a car.
Exactly. I mean, you wouldn't want to waste time. I mean, I don't think it's wasting time, but there's other opportunities to have a bit more of a meaningful conversation rather than getting an advanced student to try and explain to you what a car is.
What, do you think you could describe what a car is to me right now?
I'd love to try, but no, I'm not going to do that. But this is the thing I'm saying, it's the right balance between condescending and getting them talking and having a meaningful conversation.
I've got a rather heavy topic for us now.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, have you ever got any private students from other companies?
We're going there, are we?
Because I'm going to put my hand up, and honestly, I have never taken any students from any other companies.
Are you swearing on English file right now?
I've got English file,
The Bible,
in my hand, and I swear, to the best of my knowledge, that I haven't taken any students.
Well, Gav, I'm going to place my hand on the Bible of English learning.
Is that the teacher's edition?
Well, it could be many things. I have also never taken private students. I always go through legitimate avenues to teach my students because I basically just think the one or two that you might take, it's not worth the risk of your company finding out, getting annoyed, and then you losing potentially your job or potentially more students in the long run. In my own experience, I've had more benefit from telling my potential students who want to go private with me, sorry, I don't do that, and they have to go through my company. And it actually worked out to my advantage because my company then trust me and think, well, that's really decent of you.
You said to the company, there's a student in one of the classes, they've got in touch with me privately through my email, and they've asked if they can have some private lessons, just paying directly to the teacher.
Yes, Gav, I've always passed that student on to my company to organise the course through them.
So you forwarded that email to
Well, before I did that, I said to the student, I will forward your email so they know what's going on.
That's good. And you explained the situation.
Yeah, what about you?
I'm in exactly the same situation as you, Em. Despite receiving a lot of emails from students from active classes that was organised by a company I was working for, I still said to them, I'm really sorry, I can't take any students. You'll have to speak to our office.
I think it's dangerous because it can snowball. Because if you say yes to that one student and then they, maybe 1 week, 1 month, 1 year down the line, tell another student who's currently in that course, or these people could go away and come back at any time, but then they find out you're charging less or, doing one-to-one private lessons, you could potentially lose all the students in that class by them all saying, well, could you teach me? Could you teach me? Could you teach me? And it may seem very attractive and you're just saying yes, 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 but then you've lost the class with that company and they may start looking into why you've lost that class. And then the students say, well, because we're having private lessons now. And that is not a good situation to be in.
Definitely not.
If you want to do that, fine, go freelance, go private completely. But I think you've got to be very careful if you're working for a company.
Good. I'm glad we agree on that, Em. And before we go to our quiz of the week, I would like to know, is it okay for students to ... drink something in the class?
Of course.
No limitations, hot beverages, cold, icy, whatever.
We're not on a plane. Well, actually, that's fine. I don't know. I mean, alcohol, I would probably say no. Luckily, I've never had to deal with it. But if somebody came in with a bottle of whiskey or something, I'd think, bit strange. But generally, no. I think any liquid's fine.
That's good. How about eat something?
Again, I haven't got a problem with it. Would be weird if they were to get out a,
cheeseburger?
Steak dinner, cheeseburger. Again, I think there's just common etiquette that people tend not to do these things. But
So anything above chewing gum, lollipop, we might be a little bit unsure about.
Well, yeah, but chewing gum is a really good example of something that's really annoying for everybody else. If there's one student just chewing the whole time and they're trying to do a quiet exercise.
It can affect the way they speak as well.
That's also true. Oh, this is quite an in-depth thing we could get into now. I don't know. I mean, it's a case-by-case thing. Generally, I'm fine with food in the classroom, but it would have to be...
Quiet food?
Quiet food, yes.
So don't suck too hard on that lollipop or you're going to distract all the other students.
Mm.
How about emailing people?
Yeah.
Using your phone, WhatsApp, Instagram.
I'm not keen on that, to be honest.
So phones should stay in your handbag, in your pocket, on the table, face down.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to just allow these things.
Answer a phone call.
Life just comes in sometimes.
It happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think if somebody was just there all the time, just scrolling through social media, I would question, why are you in this class if you're not here to learn English?
It's not social media class.
No. Again, it would depend on how long it was for and what they were looking at, and you couldn't really pry too much, but I think you'd get an idea if it was an email that was really urgent or just, TikTok or something.
How about picking your nose?
I don't like it.
How about sleeping?
No.
Arguing?
Depends.
On?
If you've set that up as a debate type class.
That's the task.
Yeah, then it's okay.
Swearing?
We're breezing through this list, Gav. I feel like there's a lot to be said on every single topic. Sneezing, did you say?
Swearing.
Swearing. Sneezing's okay. Swearing, yeah, we've discussed before.
Sneezing into a handkerchief, maybe, but not sneezing into my face.
No, we've talked about swearing. I'm not that keen on it, but I don't mind a little bit.
Flirting.
What is this list? I don't understand. What do you think I'm going to say to people? You cannot flirt in this class. Get out. It's weird.
Is this going to go up on the wall with the classroom rules? No swearing, no flirting.
Yeah.
What about playing Candy Crush?
No, I wouldn't like that either.
Is it okay to introduce the class to your pets?
Yeah.
Or is it introduce the pets to your class?
Either, both. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's fine.
Face to face, this might be a bit unusual. Online, it's okay.
I don't know. I've seen people take animals into classes. It's fine.
So generally, your verdict is it's a pretty cool place to do whatever you want. Just leave your phones in your pockets.
And don't pick your nose. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can generalise. If you're trying to get me to state a fact based on that list, I can't tell you. I'm sorry. There are lines I draw.
Thank you for describing those drawn lines.
I don't feel like it was very clear or comprehensive, Gav. Maybe we'll come back to some of those in the future.
Because now it's time for Quiz of the Week.
Thank goodness.
This week's Quiz of the Week is something fun.
They are usually fun, so I would expect nothing less, Gav.
Let me tell you the name of the website where I borrowed this activity. It's not really an activity, it's just a list, but I'm going to go through it anyway. arapahoelibraries.com/blogs/post/names for groups of animals.
Oh, I think I know what we're doing.
What is it?
/names for groups of animals.
What are names for groups of animals, Em?
Like a herd of cows.
Oh, or antelopes.
Yes.
Do you know any more?
I know lots of them, but that's not Quiz of the Week. That's just M giving a list of animal group names.
I know that I should elicit at least a couple from you, Em, so give us a few more. And I hope that the followers are doing the same. They're racking their brains trying to think of other names of groups of animals. What do we mean by groups of animals anyway?
Collected groups together.
Animals of the same type.
Yes,
and
yes.
then you get lots of them together. What would we say? More than 3, 4, 5, 10?
I don't know. You always want a specific. I don't know how many technically. I suppose more than 2.
And then we give them a name.
Yes. My favourite one is a murder of crows.
A murder of crows?
Yes. That's
that is
just
cool.
Very cool. And a parliament of owls.
A parliament of owls. All the bird ones are really good.
They are, but I mean, it gives you an idea, doesn't it, about crows and owls. Murder of crows, parliament of owls.
Well, I must say, when I hear crows, I do think they're a bit creepy.
Well, you associate them with graveyards and Halloween, darkness.
They've got a weird chuckle sound when they sing.
And owls you always associate with wisdom, don't you, and learning.
Well, they can turn their heads right round, and they wear glasses on TV.
They look like they're wearing glasses because their eyes are very big. So you associate them with intelligence and, politics, maybe.
The political owl.
Yeah. It's a whole animal species given a vibe just from these names, in my opinion.
They do look kind of smart.
Yeah. You know that crows, they're a corvid bird, and corvids are the most intelligent animals in the world. Like, they're on the same level as dolphins. I've seen what crows can do on zebra crossings with peanuts. It's phenomenal.
Really?
Yeah.
That is very cool.
Google it.
For the quiz this week, Em, I'm going to give you a few different names for groups of animals, and I want you to tell me which animals these refer to.
You're going to tell me the name of the group and I need to tell you what animals they are. Oh, well, okay.
So much more fun, isn't it?
It is. I was expecting the other way around. Go on.
For example, a tower.
Tower of giraffes.
How do you know that?
Come on. Of course it is. I didn't know that, but it's so good. I love that.
How about a cackle?
Cackle of hyenas.
Wow, you are very, very good at this already. A leap.
A leap of frogs?
It's a cat species.
Oh, don't know. Cat that jumps.
It kind of rhymes.
A leap of leopards?
A leap of leopards. You leapt to the right answer there.
Wow, it's like a poem. I know Pride of Lions. Everyone knows Pride of Lions.
Yes.
But Leap of Leopards.
That's nice. What's a colony of?
Ants, isn't it?
It is, but it's also another animal.
Oh, colony.
This is another birdie one, but these birds don't fly.
Oh, is it penguins?
It is a colony of penguins.
Yes.
And what's a prickle?
Oh, that must be hedgehogs. Please tell me it's hedgehogs.
I haven't got hedgehogs on my list, Em. I'm really sorry. It's the other one.
Porcupine?
Yes.
You don't see them together that often, so you wouldn't see that many prickles of porcupines in your lifetime, but I'm really hoping I do, because I can shout, hey, that's a prickle of porcupines over there.
How about a zeal?
A zeal? A zeal of...
I think there's a big clue there with the first letter of that word.
Zebras? A zeal of zebras?
It is a zeal of zebras.
No, I don't agree. I was expecting a much more effervescent animal than zebras, but it's fine.
A pack of...
wolves or dogs.
Very good. I hadn't heard this and I'm surprised, but a shiver.
A shiver of fish, maybe?
It is something you'd find in the sea.
A shiver of jellyfish?
It's a shark.
Shiver of sharks? There again, they're quite solitary animals, aren't they? You would not expect to see so many.
You're not going to see many shivers, are you? Well, hopefully not.
Is that where pirates get shiver me timbers from?
It may well be, although I think shivering there refers to being a bit chilly.
Well, shiver me timbers. Timber is wood. Shiver me I need to find out.
Shiver shake? No? Right.
Shake my wood. Shake a leg, peg leg, who knows?
According to Wikipedia, in heavy seas, ships would be lifted and pounded down so hard as to, quotation marks, shiver the timbers.
All right, well, that makes total sense, doesn't
Startling the sailors.
Yeah.
That's it, shiver me timbers.
Shaking my boat.
That's it, exactly. Let's do a couple more. A drove.
A drove of, I'm not sure, something like rhinos?
No, again, it sort of rhymes. Well, the first letter helps. It's not a horse.
Drove of donkeys.
A drove of donkeys. I'm sure you know what a litter refers to.
Yeah, that's kittens, isn't it? Puppies.
I was going to say puppies.
Is it a litter of puppies? Kittens and maybe, yeah. So not just group animals, but also group animals for baby animals. It's hard.
Let's do one more. A cloud.
Cloud of bees.
Nope, that's a swarm.
That's a swarm. Of course it is. Cloud of something that flies, surely.
Yep.
So cloud of
Also could be a plague of...
Locusts.
It is a plague or cloud of locusts.
I'm swatting virtually in my head. Don't get in my hair. Yeah.
I think you did very well. I didn't keep track of your score, but I'm pretty sure you did quite well there.
It wasn't bad. I liked that activity, and you could actually guess some of them. So students of a high level perhaps could do what I did and guess, or you could do a matching exercise. If it was with a kids group, you could get pictures and get them to match the word with the animal.
That's it.
Really fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed the show, because I also did. And I think that I learnt a few things here, and I hope the followers did too.
Most certainly. Always learn something. Definitely. Thank you very much, Gav. It was a pleasure as always.
It's always a pleasure for me too on Gav and M's How to English TEFL Pod with Gav
And M.
Catch you next time.
Bye for now.